So
something like
one
that.
of the things we talked about a lot in the show too is we have these quasi um, governmental agencies, and so the American Board of Anesthesiology is one of these such groups, and the ABMS would be an example. Any of the specialty boards would be this, where they are private, so you can't. There's no like legislation you can pass to change the rules, but we're sort of beholden to them as specialists. Like we have really no power, and
Mhm.
it's not like you can go to the North American Board of Anesthesiology. There's only the ABA. There's no other place to get certified, which makes the studies to what your point was. Very few people who are not board certified who can find jobs anywhere, because if you can, it's like you said, you're at a kind of a low class hospital or something like that, and
Mhm.
so it's the counterfactual to prove like these guys aren't dangerous. Well, or because everybody pretty much is board certified who's working in anesthesia. So you can't really like even have any sort of reasonable study with, matching cohorts of, people who have training or whatever. And so with the ABA, I guess to your point, they had this test, they had no pilot study. They just said, hey, we're going to do this. We'll see how it goes. And then I don't know, even if they got feedback, how do you know that they care what your feedback is? I mean, what sort of power do physicians have? In this case, anesthesiologists, but it could be any specialty board, right? They could just launch something. What power do we have to say that this is not a good idea? Because it seems to me that there's nothing we can do because they control the certification process, whether we can work or not.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a hard one, right? I mean, that's what they take advantage of. It is a voluntary, mandatory exam.
Like the IRS, right? You can send us your taxes. You don't have to, but if you don't, you'll go to jail.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, they should first realize themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, come on, they've gone through the same process, as you and me. The board directors, they're all anesthesiologists. They know what they're doing. And in fact, I was speaking to one of the director, and again, I'm not going to tell the names. And before they, started this process of asking, one of the director, in fact, raised the question: how many of you guys, among the directors, I think there are 10, 12 of them, are capable of, passing these transitions as an echo or ultrasound? Not many,
Yeah.
unless they were doing cardiac anesthesia. Well, you can argue, once you pass the exam, you don't have to know about it. But then, if you're a director of a board trying to establish some new norm and bring in something new, I think it is reasonable to expect that they should know it themselves. At least, I mean, that's my opinion. But your question is, how can you change it? Well, I mean, I hope I made some beginning. At least, I made people to think. And if more and more people think, and I have another IRB approved study looking at other aspects of the ABA functioning, and probably that study, the questionnaire survey will be going up in the next 6 months or so. So that, I mean, the very fact, if that's the case, if what you're saying is true, ABA should have just ignored my survey altogether, right?
Sure.
There was no need for them to lie to the Medscape, criticizing my study. If I'm nobody, if they think, who cares,
right.
This guy is nothing, if he's just barking at us in a very huge elephant, who cares? If that's the case, they could have told the Medscape tutor, you know what, we don't respond to those kind of studies. So obviously they care.
Yeah.
Obviously they care what the residents, think. USMLE, finally they had to, I mean, the pandemic came as well, but they did, got rid of their exam, which was not serving any purpose, which was biased, which was questioned for many years, both by American graduates and foreign medical graduates, and they finally got rid of it. So if residents and doctors keep putting pressure, and I'm sure, but I mean there are other legal ways of doing it. Sending representation to the state legislatures and things like that, and working that way. But who has time and effort? And the problem is most of the people, once they get certified, they don't care to look into that.